Show number 427. It's going to be a day-night doubleheader today. Something we have never done, where I do two shows in one day. Reason being is tomorrow I head to America for 3 weeks. And yesterday I meant to go on live, but I didn't get around to it. It was my mother's second Yorzeit. That means 2 years since my mother passed away. And I had promised that I would do, because when my father had his Yorzeit, which was 3 weeks ago, I did a whole thing on my father's side of the family. And I thought we have to do something for my mother's side of the family. I'm not expecting many people to be up watching this if you're in America, as it's 3:24 in the morning. But you never know who's going to pop on. You just never know. And then tonight, we will go regular with the show number 428 with the musical show. So let's go and do a little bit of history into my grandmother and my mother. And my grandfather, too, of course. So we'll tell you all about it. So let's go back now to the year 1902. So with my father's family, we had to go back to 1895 and 1896. This time we go back to 1902 and 1905. 1902 is when my grandmother, Bobby Hinda, was born. And she was born in Basarabia, Romania, in a town called Otek, or Otaki, Otaci. And when she was 7 years old, she almost drowned. They pulled her out by her hair in some sort of river that I don't know how that happened, but that was one of the stories that I know, because I don't know many stories, other than she was a fireball. She was a very energetic, very, what's the word? She was very energetic, a very fiery lady. And she, at 7 years old, she almost drowned, but thank God she lived. And Romania was a difficult place to live because, the Jews were not welcome so much in Romania. The Jews were not welcome in Romania so much. And I know that my grandfather, who I'm named after, my great-grandfather, he was Bobby Hinda's father, named Aryeh Leib Naslavsky. That was his name. So Bobby Hinda was Hinda Naslavsky, and Bobby Hinda's mother was Nechama Melnikov. Okay? Nechama Melnikov. So you had Aryeh Leib Naslavsky married Nechama Melnikov. My brother, who's named Nehemiah after Nechama, right? They just added a yud and it became Nehemiah, Nehemiah, and his English name is Nathaniel. And I am Aryeh Leib, and my English name is Leonard. That's true. Thank you, Andy. All right. Saying the neshama, my mother should have an aliyah. My mother's neshama should have an aliyah. That means the soul should be uplifted. We don't really know what that means, but it's a good thing. Anyway, so here we are talking about my grandmother, but first Bobby Hinda, born in 1902. Now, when she was part of a big family, and she had an older sister named Toby. Toby in Yiddish means Yonah or dove. Okay, so now Yonah, her older sister Toby, dies at a young age, at like 22 years old, from a plague, from some sort of disease. And so my great-grandfather, who I'm named after, had been working on sending Toby to America. Okay? Now, Toby was supposed to go to America, but she dies. Now, as it turns out, Hinda, my grandmother, Bobby Hinda, looks like Toby. So, in the middle of the night, Aryeh Leib Naslavsky, my great-grandfather, wakes up my grandmother Hinda and says, Hinda, die willst fuhren zu Amerika? Which in Yiddish means, Hinda, do you want to go to America? And my grandmother says, yes, I do. So there we go. That set the stage in motion. And in 1927, when my grandmother, Bobby Hinda, is 25 years old, she's on a boat from Romania to Ellis Island. And She goes through Ellis Island, and who is there to greet her? Cousin Brana. Brana. Her English name was Bertha. Her Yiddish name was Brana. Now, Cousin Brana had paid for papers for Toby. So when my grandmother, when she sees it's Bobby Hinda, Brana gets upset. What are you doing here? I don't want you. I want Toby. And my grandmother has to explain, Toby died. She's not alive anymore. So Toby's not alive anymore. And not right. So Toby's not alive anymore. Hinda was alive. Hinda took the paperwork because she looked like Toby. She used the paperwork and got into America on that, on because she looked like her older sister. So very, very interesting. Very interesting. Now, Brana still is not happy and says, that cost me a lot of money. I want you're going to go to work and you're going to pay off the money that I spent to bring Toby here, because I didn't want you, I wanted Toby, which is a pretty cruel thing to do. But what can you do? You can't judge her. We're not in her shoes. She's not alive now anyway. I don't even know what happened to her. I know that she lived in Philadelphia. So that's where my grandmother's first stop was, Philadelphia. Now, she ends up paying off her debt, and Bobby Hinda goes to America, goes to New York, and in 1932 meets Grandpa Harry. That's my grandfather. Herschel in Yiddish, Tzvi Hersh in Hebrew, or David Tzvi. It was David Tzvi Alevi. Now, Herschel did not know a word of Hebrew. He knew Yiddish, he knew English. He was a secular, he was not a religious man. He also was a merchant marine. He joined the merchant marines at 18 years old. And, he also came from a pretty big family of a lot of brothers and sisters, at least 5 brothers and maybe 2 sisters. Anyway, so what happens is Herschel and Hinda fall in love and they get married in 1932. My grandmother is 30 years old. And now my grandfather, Harry, was born in 1905. He was only 27. So he was 2.5 years younger than, or 2 years, 3 years younger than my grandmother, which is really also a big thing. So Herschel marries Hinda, and in 1934, my mother is born. My mother was named Toby, after the sister that died at the age of 22. And in 1939, my Aunt Marcia is born. So there are 2 kids that come out of this marriage. And what's interesting about it is they were the only 2 surviving Melnikov and Naslavskis. They were the only 2. The Nazis wiped out the entire freaking families, both of them. They starved them, they beat them. Aryeh Naslavsky gets killed by workers. He had a business. His workers kill him. And my grandmother gets letters that everybody's dead, and she cries. The only person that survived besides her was Uncle Ezra, who went to Rio de Janeiro, to Brazil, and he never had any children. So Uncle Ezra never had any children. He was married to Rosie. They never had any children in Brazil. And the only 2 surviving people from the Naslavsky Melnikov family is my mother and her sister Marcia, who was born in 1939, 5 years younger than my mother. And what's very interesting is Aunt Marcia never got married. And so the only person who got married from that family was my mother. She had 3 children, and the branches started again. She had me in 1961, my brother in 1962, and my sister in 1972. And so my sister Judith, my brother Nehemiah or Nathaniel was born in 1962. So we were the three. We start the branches of the tree from this disaster in Romania. And those Romanians, you guys, if you get a chance, go take a look at my music video called Transnistria. Transnistria, Schlock Rock Transnistria. Take a look at my video. It explains it all. And I actually did research in Yad Vashem to do this music video. And Ethan Bill was the videographer, and he also played drums on it. Really, really great music video. Okay, so here we are now. It's 1934. My mother is born. 1939. My aunt is born. My grandmother, Bobby Hinda, realizes when my mother is 15 that she named her after a sister that died young, and she gets worried because she's afraid maybe my mother will also, not have that. Will have the same mazel as her older sister, which is that she died young. That's not good. So she marches my mother down to the rabbi. I think his name was Rabbi Singer, and he in Williamsburg, New York. They were living in Williamsburg, New York. And my grandmother tells Rabbi Singer the story, and he says, from this day on, my mother will be known as Chai Toby. Chai, live, Toby, live. And it worked. My mother lived to 89 years old. My mother passed away 2 years ago. So 89 years old my mother was. 3 months before her 90th birthday, she died. And my mother was a genius. My mother, let me just tell you, I don't know if she skipped, but she could have in school. By the time she's 15, she's already finished with high school. And she ends up going to Israel in 1951. Israel is 3 years old, and she was 16 when she left. And she goes to Israel for a whole year. You know how people go now when they go for the gap year, they go for a year. So she went for a whole year to Israel to a program called Machon L'Madrichei Chutz La'aretz, and it's a Bnei Akiva program. And she goes, and she comes back, and can you imagine my grandmother must have went through her 17-year-old daughter gets on a boat, goes for 3 weeks to Israel, and then spends a whole year there. And there's no cell phones, there's no WhatsApp, there's no anything. You write letters. Anyway, so it's now, so that was 1951, 52. And my mother went to Brooklyn College, and she got a teaching certificate, and she became a teacher. But she meets my dad in 1956 on July 4th. July 4th, 1956. She meets my dad. I think it was the Pines Hotel in the mountains for some sort of singles thing. And they go out for a year, and they get engaged, and then they get married June 1958. So June 1958, they get married, and I'm born in 1961. And then my mother was going to have a PhD in psychology or whatever, something psych. But because I'm born, she gives it all up to raise me and then my brother, who she has a year later, 2 years later, actually, 22 months later. She has my brother. She gives that up, and she stays home and raises us. That was what they did back then. That was what they did. It's really pretty funny. And my mother did tell me the story of Bobby Hinda taking Marcia, her younger sister, and herself to Philadelphia to meet Brana, to show her this is what you paid for, you got me to America, and I was able to have a family, and I kept the name going. And Barana, by the way, her uncle was Aryeh Noslavsky. That was the connection. Why would she? What was the relation? Her father was the brothers with Aryeh Noslavsky. Anyway, so that was the quick story. And my mother went on to teach for many, many years. She gave a shiur in Chumash every Wednesday night at my shul, Kew Garden Synagogue. She also taught English as a second language at Hillcrest High School. And she ended up, she was a great, great mom. And, as wild as she was in her youth, the opposite happened when she got older, where she did, whenever I would go outside, she would say, take a jacket, even though it might have been 90 degrees, take boots, it's not going to rain. She was like that. That was the type of mother she was. And she never really complained. She never complained. She never kvetched. She accepted her lot. She had arthritis at the end of her life. She could have had hip replacements or knee replacements, but she refused. She said, I'd rather just have the arthritis, which was what happened. That's what she had. And, that's the scoop. So my mother passed away in 1989. She gave birth to my sister Judith in 1972. And that was great. We have 3 children altogether in our family. And, my sister has 5 children, and my brother has 2, and I have 4. So she had 11. And so the train continues, as they say. The train continues. The trees continue. The branch continues. And so my mother now is passed away, and we of course remember her life as a good life. She was a good mom. She was a good wife. She was a good teacher, and here's to you, Mom. All right, so I've spoken for 17 and a half minutes straight. You got the basic story. If you have any questions, please feel free to write to me, lenny@shlockrock.com. Also, I am leaving for tonight. We're going to do a music show, so it's going to be a day-night doubleheader, which I've never done. And it's free, a day-night doubleheader. You don't have to pay extra money. But if you want to donate to the Shlock Rock Foundation, please, www.shlockrockfoundation.org. Press on donate. It's right there. It's right on your screen. And I just want to say that it was fun. It was fun schmoozing. Keep on schlocking, everybody. And we will see you tonight for show number 428 on Lenny Sullivan Live with music. It'll be fun.